and today we're going to talk about consciousness. I'm sitting here with Jay Nelson. Jay, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Hey, everybody. First off, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
So I am a writer, a researcher, and an award-winning screenwriter obsessed with the study of consciousness. I started studying psychology at Florida State University, but then after that was into acting and then had a near-death experience at around 2013. And ever since then, got obsessed with the study of consciousness and haven't been able to put it down. And about 6 years ago, started writing a book on the subject and just recently published it called Consciousness in a Nutshell. So that's me.
Yeah, I like the cover. I saw that.
Thank you. Yeah. Took us a while to get that cover, I gotta say.
Yeah, I could see that. It's a good cover.
Thanks, man. When you're trying to reduce like a huge subject like consciousness down to one thing, it was like, what is that thing? Like I couldn't even think of it. But finally this, popped into our heads. So
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out because it's one of those things that you feel like you know what it is until you have to explain it.
oh right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember me and an ex, like, we got into a conversation that I didn't enjoy about actually consciousness. Yeah.
Oh yeah? Why is that?
She was trying to tell me that her cat had feelings and all this other stuff, and I was like, hunger, sleep, those feelings, yeah.
But then it's separated because you didn't think like I guess was she trying to ascribe complete human emotion, everything to the cat?
Well, so first of all, like, I'm a guy. I barely have all those emotions. Like, I'm recently starting to accept all that. So to believe that a cat has all that, nah, not really. You know?
Well, I'm not gonna like just take her side blindly or anything, but I will
Yeah,
say,
please don't.
one of my favorite quotes comes from the Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. She wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight. She suffered a massive stroke and it took her 8 years to recover, but she writes about, her stroke, and she was a Harvard trained neuroanatomist. So anyway, one of the lines I love in that book is, although many of us think of ourselves as thinking creatures that feel, biologically, we are feeling creatures that think. So, like, and what that just points to is that thought is a second order process in the brain. We feel everything first before we're able to think about something. So even though, being men, like we can identify as not having feelings, that's completely false because we feel everything before we're able to think. Um, so yeah.
That's so weird. I was actually going to use that quote for my Wednesday wisdom thing that I do.
Really? That quote?
Yeah. I was
Bro.
actually going to use that one, but then I saw another one. I was like, nah, I'm using this one today.
Well, I love the quote that you have like just recently, which is our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Yeah, it
I
was hard to
love
fit into
that
the
quote
thing, too.
because it's longer than that.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful quote that's often ascribed to somebody else, but it's
Mandela.
Marianne Williamson. Yeah, it's exactly, but it's Marianne Williamson.
Yeah. That's wild. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, as men, we do have feelings, but I think we're just kind of raised to, shove it down, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We are raised to shove it down. There's this chapter in the book called Emotional Coding, and it's all about that because, growing up in the South, we were told it's like men can get angry, women feel, so women feel, men deal. Like, so you're not allowed to cry. And if you do, you're going to get savagely torn apart by people above you or people at your same age level, like 9-year-olds, whatever it happens to be. Like it was I mean, I remember like it getting stomped out of me and not being able to cry for years. But like you have to be able to discharge your feelings. Otherwise, it's like a process. And if you don't finish the last step of the process, then these feelings get trapped in your body and they cause you psychopathologies. Like, I mean, if we ever want to talk about mental illnesses, it's all about your life story and you being okay with it. Because if you're not okay with your life story, then some sort of psychopathology is going to manifest itself.
That's the way I guess trauma gets all bottled in.
Exactly. But, like in the idea goes, it's like, you think about how the resilience of babies, or you think about animals, for example, like, they could be, this is true. Like they'll be chased by a predator and then they'll get away and then they're completely safe, but they still have to shake and like, get all the pent up energy out. They have to dissipate all this excess mental and physical and emotional energy out of their system. And so we're just like that too, like we have to process these emotions. And if we don't process them, then they get stuck. And that's how trauma, because like everybody's got some sort of trauma, but like it's
Yeah.
it's it's what are the differences between the person that uses their trauma versus the person that is used by their trauma. And I've been used by my trauma enough that I don't want anyone to be used by their trauma anymore. Because I'm sorry, we can let that stuff go and unlock the highest parts of ourselves. Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah, I completely get that. It took me a while to learn to honestly just let things go.
yeah.
Yeah. And oh my God, it's freeing. Right
Was that
now, actually, I'm reading the Four Agreements, and that's kind of just one of the agreements.
yeah.
Don't take things personally.
It's hard to it's easy to read that. It's hard to practice that, right?
Not really, because it's something I came to terms with before reading it. The only time I really have issues with it is in traffic. That's.
Nice.
I wish I was kidding.
Yeah, man. I know. I feel you. I lived in LA, so I know traffic, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the near-death experience.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So in 2013, I was producing a pilot that I had written and was starring in. And so like my life seemed like it was pretty good on paper. I was 25, had a SAG card, had an agent. I was, producing this pilot, but like I kind of hated myself and kind of deep down wanted to kill myself, but didn't know that, right? It's weird. You'll act recklessly and not exactly know what's underneath that. Why am I acting out in this way? And so, long story short, I had kind of a drug overdose, and I don't say the phrase "I died" lightly, but I died. And when like I had a moment that could only be described as outside of time, in which you're corresponding with your highest self or whatever you want to call it. So I'm corresponding with my highest self, and the conversation something like, "So this is how your parents are going to find you, dead on the floor of your
Oh,
crummy Koreatown apartment. Your parents are going to have to come ID you. And they're going to have to fly out to LA to come see their only son dead on the floor because he took too much of a substance. He didn't know what it was. And now he's dead. Now, do you like your life?" And I was so sad, Mo. I was disgusted with who I had become, the monster I was, everything about my life. Like I couldn't even stand it, man. So I pleaded with my highest self that I would do anything to come back, anything to come back. And I was given the chance to come back. But like if you add, I mean, like I put it like usually when I tell that story, I get chills on my arm because of how scary the moment was of to watch your life flash before your eyes. And it was kind of like a boomerang where it goes like, this way and it reverses and then goes the other way and then goes this way and the other way and just loops back and forth on infinity. Like
mhm.
that's what it was like. And then, there's this moment where it's like you're just so disgusted with your own life that you just like give up. So it's like you finally just, if you're drowning, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna breathe in water now. Like so it was that moment for me. It was like, okay, like letting go slash taking my last breath and hitting the floor, because I was like spiraling out of control in my apartment. And anyway, it was like hitting the floor, letting everything go, accepting that I was, that this was it, that was my last breath. And then after that, the philosopher Alan Watts talks about the ending of karma is called nirvana. And so that's exactly what I had. I had let go of all the bullshit that was destroying my life and like just like okay fine fuck it, I'm a horrible person, this is how I died. And then it was just like the most freeing feeling I'd ever had just washes over me. And I mean it's that kind of moment that resets you, that rewrites your source code, that changes who you're going to be for the rest of your life. And I'll never forget it, and I've had multiple experiences like that. So yeah, that's the short version.
Hmm. I can I can understand that I had a near-death experience where it pretty much seemed like the last moment. But
Really?
yeah, yeah, like there was lost a little bit of blood. You know,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't know if it's because of the loss of blood or what it was. Like I kind of thought I saw something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but again, loss of blood, all that could have just been, who knows. Let me ask you this. So when that happened, and obviously you survived it,
Mhm.
did you feel like you were reborn, or was it like, oh shit, I gotta do all this to get myself together?
Yeah, when you so neurologically speaking, what seems to have happened to me is that my conscious self descended into the realm of the unconscious, right? And so the unconscious or the body is kind of like feels very timeless. And so people often describe these out of body experiences or near death experiences or transcendent or mystical type experiences as happening outside of time in some sort of, eternity or infinity. These are the words they use to describe it. And so that's exactly what happened for me. Shit, what was your original question?
Well, let's get back to that in a moment. So is
Okay.
that why people say that when they die, their life flashes before them?
I mean, it seems to be that it's hard to say why their life flashes before them, but I mean, I think it would be just, we're well, if you really want to go there, um, my personal idea on the matter is that, infinity is what there is, and what we're experiencing right now is a moment in which we've blocked out that. We've locked ourselves out of infinity, out of eternity, to experience a human moment, to have to. So, in the place of unity or non duality, things are all one, right? And there's no separation between self and other, or you and God, if you want to call it that, or you and Mo, or whatever it is. Like, there is no separation. It's all one thing. But once you get into this world where we are right now, the field of time, where we're living in pairs of opposites, there are opposites. There are self and other. There are, black and white and north and south
Yeah.
and up and down. Because there are those things, time exists. And so um, we exist in this moment. And so, but you can tap into these non-dual states with meditation or flow states, with sensory deprivation tanks. You can tap into these moments. So it doesn't, even with sound baths, you can tap into out of body
Like what?
experiences. A sound bath,
What is that?
it's crazy. Okay, so they will like you basically you'll be in some sort of place where people will be playing these huge crystal bowls, and so it's kind of like, rubbing your finger over the top of like a champagne flute, how it'll make that
Yeah.
noise. Well, they'll do that with these a crystal bowl that like probably weighs 30 or 40 pounds, and it's like, as big as a drum, and they're playing multiple ones at the same time, and um something about the sound, it can take you and lift you out, man. I had an out of body experience at one of these sound baths before. It doesn't happen at every single one, but it happened on one with just a little bit of cannabis, and man, that was interesting.
So if I record that and listen to it, would it have the same effect, or is it something like you have to be there in person?
I think the set and setting, like are is very important. So I think you'd want to be there. Like you could record it and maybe it might take you back there if you were there already. But I think, in order to get that really deep experience, you probably would want to be there in person. But yeah. So yeah, the idea, but sound baths or sensory deprivation tanks or all the other things I mentioned are capable of, showing you different ways of experiencing a moment and experiencing time in a different way. And so I think to answer your original question, like why our life flashes before our eyes is, if you are hung up on something that happened to you or you wish you could have changed something, then yeah, it's like the memories are before they get purged, before you can reach the non-dual space, you have to confront them. You have to review them, so to speak. Um, and then, but if you do accept it and you can walk into that moment that is outside of time, that place called Nirvana or Satori or Kensho or whatever you want to call it.
Well,
It's a lot to chew on. I know.
yeah, it is. Yeah. I think the next one I'm gonna do is gonna be on just regular old finance, but yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was wondering, your videos are like very, you got tons of different ones.
Yeah, I basically do mortgages for a living, so like finance is like my forte, but I've gotten more and more into spirituality. Especially I guess after that near life death experience.
Yeah.
It didn't really get me into it, but it got me towards that direction.
Haven't talked about a lot about your near death experience. Like you just briefly teased it. Like I heard loss of blood.
Oh, yeah, I got stabbed.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, it was. I got stabbed a few times in one instance.
Okay. Wow, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what it feels like to have an instrument go into your body. That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. And like the person kept stabbing, you know.
What?
Yeah.
Where was this? Were you getting mugged or something?
Brooklyn.
Oh my lord. Okay.
Yeah. Long, long story. You know. I survived it.
Yeah. So when did the near death experience happen? Were you at the hospital or was this
No,
during
I
it
didn't go
or
to the hospital.
what?
Yeah. A whole other reason for that, but yeah, I didn't go to the hospital.
All right.
This happened, let me see, I already started doing stocks. So yeah, early 2000s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So did you have like a moment where you chose to come back or anything like that or what
I
happened for you?
think so. So during it happening, it was all, kind of just reflex and adrenaline and stubbornness, I guess.
Mhm.
But then that night getting through it, that was a tough night. And it was one of those things where, you're fighting, but at the same time, you're like, it would be easy to give up.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So and again, this could have just been loss of blood, who knows? But I felt like it was, you make the choice. You give up and relax, or you don't.
Mm, yeah. Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was like, and you're skipping over a lot of details that I think me, I mean, and the audience are probably like, I want to know, like, what happened? Like, why was someone stabbing you? Why didn't you go to the hospital? Like,
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened. People were upset.
okay, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that moment about like giving up, like, man, I remember it was like I was, like that moment. It's so crazy because when I talk about that last moment, like letting that last breath go, it's like there was an infinite amount of experiences that happened within that moment. And this is one of those experiences that happened within that moment. It was like I'm lying down, right? I'm lying down and there's like a bunch of people around me, and they're like, it's okay, you can go to sleep, go to sleep. And then I realized what it was. This is death. This is death. No, 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 no. I'm not gonna lie down. I'm not gonna lie down. Like I got up and I was like, no, no, I can't. I'm not gonna. This is not gonna way. I'm gonna. This is not the way I'm gonna go out. I'm not gonna go out like this. And I refused it. I could feel it was like death's hand was on my shoulder, showing me
Whispering.
how. Huh?
Whispering.
Yeah. Well, and showing me how much of an asshole I was, and how much like I I cheated on almost every girl I'd been with at that point in my life. Like so we're talking about 25. Like I wasn't I wasn't treating people with the benefit with the respect of the truth, and I took things like it. And I'm not like it was not like I was a someone that stole all the time or anything, but it's just like little tiny things. And it was like, you don't think this is costing you. And that was one of the things that the death was like showing me was like, you don't think this is costing you, but it is. Like you don't think you care about yourself enough. Like you don't think like you think that if you got away with it, it's okay. But it's about how you feel about it. And how you feel about it really matters. So you could say all you want, like, oh, it doesn't matter. I cheat on her and, I'm okay with it because I'm a cheating piece of shit. Right. But you actually care that you're a cheating piece of shit. And a part of you, the unconscious, who does really care about your infidelity and your disrespect and that you're not treating people you're not giving people the truth, that unconscious part of you will take you down. And they call that the shadow. That's Carl Jung, the psychologist Carl Jung's idea. And so, I mean, his idea is like so profound because it's like, the things we cannot stand in other people are actually parts of ourselves we care not to see. So that's the difference between the ego and the shadow. So the ego is the wallet-sized picture we carry around ourselves that's airbrushed, sanitized, and has all those unlikable characteristics scrubbed from view. But then what is it? What is scrubbed from view is that's the shadow. So that's the part of yourself that the light of consciousness does not touch. But
Hmm.
99, basically 99% of your cognition is unconscious. So if your unconscious is mad at you, let's say,
What was
you
that
can
last part? 99% of what?
So if you talk to any expert in the field, they'll tell you that 95 to 99% of your cognition is unconscious. So so within that unconscious, in within that unconsciousness, there exists this concept called the shadow, according to Carl Jung, and it's this shadow that you get to integrate with, and I say get to that you have to integrate with or assimilate when you cross over into one of these experiences that feels like it's outside of time. In order to come back, you have to change, and so man, yeah, it's a lot.
Hmm. So that's basically seeing the bad parts of you that you kind of never accepted, something like that.
Yeah. Um, it's just like, and we'll just use your example of the traffic, right? So, you know, driving in traffic, like, someone cuts you off and then you could get so mad, like, and think and take it really personal. But then you could realize, okay, I'm not the perfect driver. I'm not a perfect driver. I've accidentally cut people off and I've purposely cut people off in my life before. So someone just cut me off. Okay, I have to accept that because what else am I going to do? Like, if I was a perfect driver and I'd never done that before, then maybe I'd be upset, right? But that isn't the case. So accept it. Like, like you're living with yourself. It's just there's this veil of time in between you and me. And so it feels like you're Mo and I'm Jay. But if you reach that unity spot, that non-dual spot, you realize everything's all one. We are eternal. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, it's that we are powerful beyond measure, right? So if you actually believe that quote, what is that saying?
Hmm. That's an interesting take. I'm gonna use that during traffic.
Yeah, man.
Hmm.
So, and then like, I mean, to answer that, like, if you are powerful beyond measure, the thing you would want to do if you were that is to exist like this,
Yeah.
where there was uncertainty and just I don't know. What am I gonna say? You don't know. But if you're in the unity spot, if you're in the non-dual spot where everything's all one and all information is together, then there are no surprises. There's nothing, there's no challenges, nothing to overcome, nothing to grasp, nothing to hold on to because you're everything. So then we play down here where you're over there and I'm over here. I
So
mean,
it's kind of
it's
just
okay, go.
accepting things, pretty much, right?
Yeah, accepting it because I mean, yeah, let's go with that. Accepting it.
Okay. Hmm.
I mean, you made a video recently about us being immortal, so I'm curious
Yeah.
where you came to that, and yeah, how'd you come to that, and why were you drawn to it as well?
So for some reason, I don't know how to shut my brain off. It
Okay,
it gets kind of annoying sometimes. So one of the things is energy itself can't be created, can't be destroyed. So that's forever. I mean, if energy was a person, it would be immortal.
yeah,
But what's to say we're not energy? I mean, yeah, we have a shell, but what's controlling the shell?
yeah,
And if that's the case, once the shell is gone, we're forever.
exactly. So what you're talking about, this is the reason why psychedelic plant medicines are being studied right now, is because they give people this experience of being one with nature, being one with the universe. They dissolve their small identity, they dissolve their ego. Neurologically, it's their default mode network in their brain that gets suppressed or obliterated temporarily, by the way. But in that moment, since their brain is no longer able to orchestrate their perceptions in a usual normal way, they have all these experiences that are chaotic and wild and entropic, and they may have these experiences where they feel like they're outside of time and they converse with some sort of entity, and they could call it God or the high self or whatever they want to call it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's what language game are you playing, right? But it's at the end of the day, you could try to attach whatever name you want to on infinity, but it's like you can't hang something on something that is infinite because I mean by definition you can't classify it. You can't name it. It is unbounded. So we just call it the infinite thing. that's what it
Yeah.
is. So then but then so your identity melts off and you merge with that, and then you realize when you come back, you're like, oh yeah, I'm that. So you take things a little less personally, a
Yeah.
little you accept things a little more because you're like, everything is sacred, everything is that, and I am that. So even though we're playing down here and sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, like if I can hold on to that idea, which is that's my true identity, and this is where I play, then your life becomes a lot more fun. And I could take my own medicine right now because I'm feeling very depressed, man.
What's wrong?
There's so much going on. I got this like I have this like this. So, did you happen to watch the video where I was talking about depression, like my theory on depression?
I had it on, but I was on the phone on a couple of calls, so heard some of it. Some of it I kind of tuned out.
Okay. Well, the basic idea behind that video is that your body is your ultimate guidance system. So I think one of our lines would be follow your unconscious because your unconscious is what gives you everything, right? And so
Mhm.
that's one of the other names I might use for God or highest self, which is your unconscious. So if you dissolve your conscious self for a second, you merge with the unconscious, and you could call that God or your highest self. But anyway, so my body is putting me through some things right now. Like I have this rib injury that I had almost 2 years ago, and it still hurts. I'm
Damn.
not able to run. And so as a person who loves to, work out and run and all that stuff, like I can't. And so it just like it's hurting me as because the warrior inside of me wants
Yeah.
to fight and run and be active, and like the realistic physical body of myself is like now we're injured still, and I'm like what is it's messing with my mind because it won't heal in a way that's quote unquote normal. So it's causing me a lot of pain, man.
Yeah,
So I
and
have
rib
I have
pain
a
hurts. I have had my ribs bruised before. Ooh, took a while to heal.
Where'd you get stabbed, by the way?
Around my stomach. Luckily, I was able to go like that for the most part, so he couldn't really get the knife up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. So yeah, and it feels so it feels so stupid to like complain about a couple ribs fractures versus like getting stabbed.
No, I mean everybody goes through something and everything is our own perspective, you know. I mean, if you look at it, I was thinking about it, what was important and crazy to you when you were 10 years old is not the same thing when you're 20,
Right.
and so on and so on, you know. I mean, hell, I got stabbed and sometimes, I still get upset when somebody cuts me off in traffic. And would I pay
Yeah.
a hand?
Inattention was installing a dishwasher with my wife, and like we were shoving it underneath
Oh, your
the
hand got
counter.
stuck.
No, it didn't get stuck, but like the sides of it, there's like basically two steel plates like right up next to each other. And it was like a paper cut that went like into the palm of my hand, like so deep. I thought I had to get stitches. They ended up just liquid stitching it up. But man, it was a very deep cut that it happened a month ago. It's still not 100%
Damn.
healed up. Yeah. So yeah. So it's like these things, like a bunch of body things. I'm already injured. And then this happens, like that destabilized me big time. Like
Yeah.
so
No, I get that. I used to heal very, very fast. I mean, for instance, I got stabbed.
yeah.
So I used to heal very quick, and now it's not like that at all. No. I think what was it, a few weeks ago, I got a little cut over here, which I don't even know how it happened.
Uh,
And I thought it was a scar. It just took forever to heal. You know. Well, also I got diagnosed with diabetes like about a year ago, a little bit over that. So that seems to be part of that.
oh really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I got diagnosed with the diabetes about a little bit over a year ago, and then when that happened, I became a sugar Nazi. Like no sugar, no carbs, no nothing. Turns out the body doesn't like that, so I almost lost my vision 2 weeks after that.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then you never realize how much you use your vision literally for everything.
Oh man.
But
So
I
you don't.
regained most of it. I mean, it's been dozens of eye procedures, but I can see you, I can see stuff. You know.
So was it like starting to just every day, like getting worse or what?
So it's a retinopathy. That part happens slowly, where things are a little bit blurry. But you honestly, I thought it was just my glasses. But it turns out that when your body is used to something bad, and then you remove the bad thing, I guess like withdrawal, your body attacks itself. So
So
when I
that.
cut out the sugar, the first thing I guess that the diabetes went for was my eyes. So within 2 weeks, I couldn't read. I remember I went to the eye doctor. After that, I went to 7-Eleven, and I couldn't read anything on the packaging. Like I was trying to get something to, just take my mind off stuff. I
Mhm.
couldn't even see what I was holding.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've had to have eye procedures since then, you said?
Oh yeah, I've had dozens.
Wow, what are they doing?
Usually what they do is this is kind of funny. So I
Okay.
used to be scared of needles.
Uh-huh.
So one of the procedures is they put a needle into your eyeball.
What?
I don't know, but the best part is before they do that, they put another needle for the painkiller. And obviously you can't blink
What? How do you not blink?
because you got to remember there's a needle in your eye. Like
I
the
mean,
last
but
thing you
like,
want to do is have your eyeball move with the needle in there.
oh my Lord, but you can't even control that generally.
Oh, you learn that shit.
Wow,
Believe me,
dude.
you learn.
Wow, man.
So this is when I was scared of needles. So there's that, and you never know what procedure you're gonna have till you get there because they do the test and then they're like, all right, we're doing this one today.
Yeah.
So there's that, and the second one is lasers. So me being me, I'm thinking the laser's not gonna be bad. And worst comes to worst, I know people have that little laser LASIK, they're fine.
Hmm.
And my point of reference, I guess, was cartoons. So I'm hearing laser. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hear cool sounds. It's gonna go. Pew. Nah. First of all, there's no sound like that, and the pain is way worse than the needle.
Really?
Oh man, it's like a blowtorch that they keep just jabbing at you. Just and same thing. Got to keep your eyes open.
And it's going into your eye is where this laser's
Yeah.
going.
Oh, and the best part is it goes into one eyeball that's kept open, but you have to keep your other eye open because if you keep only one eye open, the eye moves around.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. I gotta acknowledge you for being here. See, that's why I hate telling any story about my own because then people like they have like way cooler stories of of like pain or whatever it is, pain or suffering or just learning from, I don't know, getting their strength from something like, I don't know. Now I can't be afraid of needles because I already had one in my eye multiple times.
You get a little used to it. And I mean, different things affect people differently. Even if not even people, it depends on the timing. Like when I got stabbed, you would think it would be like a wake up call, but it really wasn't because I already kind of got my life together at that point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like growing up, like I was a little bit on the toxic side, so it was like all right, let's fight, let's be tough, rah rah.
Hmm.
So by the time that happened, like I already, I'm back in school, I'm learning, I'm studying for my Series 7, I'm trying to become a stockbroker.
Hmm.
Things are moving the way they should be. And then that happens. So I'm like, oh, like, what else can I do? Like I'm already been doing right, you know.
Damn.
Yeah. Funny thing is, when that happened, I wanted to put down, I guess, something for my little brother, like a guidebook, I guess.
Hmm.
Like, do this in life, don't do this. And then from that, I started, reading quotes. And started reading Nietzsche a little bit, and I guess that's what threw me on this trajectory. There's a lot of back and
Awesome.
forth though. Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Did you end up writing something for him?
Yeah, so I wrote it, but then I kind of just stopped. I actually still have it somewhere in the computer. It's called Be Your Own Superman.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, but then, project after project in life, you know, it's still in the computer somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah,
can
I'll
pull it
get to
out.
it.
We'll go.
You know. Since then, I've did what, like two mortgage books.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the money is.
Well, cool, man. Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nietzsche, he had a quote that goes in line with the one I was talking about earlier. Thoughts are the shadows of feelings, always darker, emptier, and simpler. That's Nietzsche's quote. But I mean,
Yeah.
it just goes to show you thought is a second order process. I mean, he didn't technically know that because we didn't have the same sorts of imaging techniques we have now. But it's interesting how a really brilliant person can intuit something like that. But I mean, even just in this moment in time, if I ask you a complex question, you'll notice, like, it isn't like you'll notice that if I ask you this complex question, you'll get a feeling first, and then you reach inside the Scrabble bag of your brain and figure out an answer. You cobble together some words and, like, based on that feeling you get, but it's a feeling first that hits you, and then you try to figure out what words can, yeah, I hang on this experience or this feeling. So yeah.
What do you mean, like intuition?
More just like just the idea that we are able to think because we are feeling creatures. And so, just the idea that, like, if I ask you a question, if you notice what happens in your body and everything, it's going to be a feeling first. It isn't that, like, I ask you a question and then you immediately have an answer. It's going to be feeling answer, rather than, a lot of people just think that we are, like, feeling is something that we just do on the side, but it's the thing that gives us the ability to do everything. Um, and so the argument, any book on consciousness, I think, would make this argument. But the argument that we make in the book is that, it goes in line with the idea of embodied cognition. So your body, the fact that you are embodied, informs everything that you do. Your body organizes all of your perceptions. And if you think about what a brain is, what a body is, brains are ultimately there to help us move through space. So to produce complex and adaptable movements. So 80% of the Earth's biomass doesn't have brains because it's plants. So, it's not that brains are a prerequisite for life or something like that, or awareness or intelligence even. You know, Plants move with intelligence. They don't have brains in the traditional sense of the word, but they don't have to produce complex movements like us. We are the most complex shape that exists on this planet, and we are the shape that can produce even more complex shapes.
So, actually, now that you mention it, so one of the things I was reading is that consciousness is basically us being aware of ourselves and the nature around us. Now, if that's true, as you mentioned, plants can do that. So, does that make them conscious?
So I would take it back to the idea that you had, which is like energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? So was that the first law of thermodynamics, or second law? It's one of the first two laws,
I was gonna
people.
say, I know it's like the first and second. I think it's the first one.
Yeah. Okay. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only transform from one form to another. So we are energetic beings, right? But to separate consciousness as something that came in later, like, basically, when you talk about consciousness, there's two essential ideas you can have. Either consciousness is fundamental to reality, so he was here before the planet, etc., or the other idea, which is more, I don't know, scientifically accepted, is that somehow consciousness emerged out of inanimate matter, which is even crazier in my opinion. So either consciousness is fundamental, so it's fundamental to reality, or it emerged later. It arose out of some kind of complexity. So I don't separate consciousness from energy, from the world. So there is consciousness. Consciousness is all that there is. There is energy. Energy is all that there is. The universe is energy. The universe is information. Consciousness is information. Consciousness as it's experienced right now is all about managing information. So you got tons of different data streams coming in, sense data streams, and you're managing this information in a way that allows you to produce movements that are right and keep you alive. But to say that a plant doesn't have consciousness, everything is a part of the consciousness field, if you will. And so yeah, I mean, so cats, dogs, dolphins, they don't have the same level of self-reflexive awareness that we do. They
Mhm.
can't think about thinking like we can. There are degrees of awareness, but it's not about intelligence as much as it's just about life. So it's just degrees of awareness in my eyes. So, a dog has a degree of awareness, a bird has a degree of awareness. We have the highest degrees of awareness that we know of. And we produce language, but which
Hmm.
allows us to talk about it and to chop up time in a way that no other species can. No other species is as painfully aware of the present moment, or sorry, as painfully aware of the future as we are, because we can suffer suffer for an experience that's going to come up. Like, oh shit, tax season is coming up. I've been suffering for that for like months. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So it's like it hasn't even happened yet, and I'm
Yeah,
suffering.
just wanted to pay my taxes.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So like anticipatory anxiety. You're anticipating this thing to happen. And
Mhm.
but like, a bird is not anticipating that sort of thing. Like they don't have to. So they're able to be more stuck in the moment, more like a flow state, more like a continuous flow state is what I imagine their existence to be like. Because, and if you had a flow state before?
I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Okay, great. So flow states, I'm sure you've probably had one. So, maybe it's when you're writing your mortgage books or when I don't know, it could happen for anybody. So we'll just say coding, surfing, snowboarding, um, poetry writing, like whatever it happens to be, whatever gets you like in the zone. Like sometimes you'll be, for me, it's writing, right? So I'll be at my laptop and I'll see the clock, it's 2 p.m. And then about 20 minutes goes by and I look up and it's like 5 p.m. What? Like I was just here for 20 minutes and then 3 hours flew by, so time dilates. So it's technically defined as those moments when we feel our best and we perform our best. So they're peak states of performance that we drop into. So it's maximum attention. Your
Yeah.
attention is stretched to the max so much that you're not even able to calculate time or the inner critic. So the ego self, the narrator, the interpreter of your feelings, whatever you want to call it, that thing melts away. So you have a moment of egolessness and timelessness. So time will either speed up or slow down, whatever it happens to be. But have you experienced that?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
Get
what?
in the zone. Yeah.
Doing what though?
Usually work stuff pretty much.
Okay.
Usually work stuff. I started painting again very recently. I noticed when I did that, I was able to shut down. It's like all the noise and everything just goes away.
Okay. So you the initial post was like, I want to talk about science, the intersection of science and spirituality. And so this is it for me. So these moments, like the the premier researcher in this field is Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And anyway, he's got this TED talk where he talks about flow states. And he's been studying this sort of thing for like 30 something years, or not more. And anyway, his idea is that people report being most happy when they're in flow, when their thinking mind shuts off for a second and they're just doing the activity, right? So they just merge with the painting. They're just painting. That's all that they were doing. They were so focused that narration went away, time went away. Those two things are luxuries in the brain. So the brain can produce these things. Our brains can, right? But they don't have to. And people report being most happy when that happens. And so if you take a flow state, right, a transcendent or mystical type experience or a near death experience, that is like a flow state with the dials turned up so far the knob rips off, right? It's the exact same experience. It's just one is way louder, and you can access the other one, like as in the transcendent or mystical type experience. You can have that with a large dose of psilocybin or LSD.
Okay. Um, psilocybin and what's that other one? Ayahuasca. Are those the same thing or are they different?
They are different compounds. The molecular structure of them is very similar, and so there's this idea in the book that we have in the idea is like there's nature's key to the unconscious. So we show you serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter in your head, so endogenous neurotransmitter, you make it. There is DMT, which is ayahuasca, basically, and then there is mushrooms, so psilocybin. So if you
Um,
look at, oh, go on.
the DMT one, that's the one that they say gets produced when you die.
That is, we do make dimethyltryptamine endogenously, but it's in such low amounts. I don't think you're able to experience much of it. That would be coming out of Dr. David Nichols' work. So I'm not really 100% sure what I believe in that scenario, but like, I did read his paper and it's pretty. I mean, I guess he just wants to like debunk like the idea that people are just kind of tripping on DMT sometimes. Yes, it's endogenously produced, but the long story short, yes, it is what is supposedly um, you experience it when you die.
Okay. But
But
at
if you
a
look at the
small
molecular,
dose.
oh,
Mhm.
sorry, go on.
No, but I was just saying at a small dose.
Yeah, at a very small dose. So probably not enough to be like active where you would see anything. But um, I mean, who knows, man? These experiences are defy science. They defy words. So it's really kind of strange. But yeah, if you look at these three molecules, like what we do in the book is we highlight the similarities between all three, and you don't have to be a chemist to see the similarities, and you're like, okay, so the idea is this is nature's key to the unconscious because this serotonin like analog is made by plants all over the world and it's everywhere like 150 species of mushrooms. That's just mushrooms that you can find this molecule. That's kind of crazy. But like, I mean, like you can find it in, I mean, ergot, which is how you get LSD. So ergot is a fungus that grows on rye and wheat, and that produces basically the same sort of chemical. And you can find that in Hawaiian baby wood rose or what other things? Morning glory seeds.
They said they believe that used to be in wine too, in like the old days, right?
Did you read The Immortality Key by Brian Marescu?
No, but that word sounds familiar. I probably heard it on a podcast somewhere.
Yeah, I was doing my first interview for the book, and someone was like, "You need to read The Immortality Key." And but basically, long story short, this book is came out in 2019, sold over 7 million copies. This guy traced the ritualistic use of ergotized beer or wine back over 10,000 years. So his idea is that the seeds of Christianity were that the original Eucharist was a spiked wine. So we just take,
What is Eucharist?
when you go for communion and they give you the wine, they give you the wine and the bread, and this is the body of Christ, is the blood of
Okay.
whatever. It's been a while since I've ever been. So anyway, but that's the Eucharist, right? And so we do it now, and it's like this watered down version. It's literally grape juice sometimes, or it's just wine. But originally, the idea goes that it was spiked with ergot. So ergot is the precursor to LSD. That's the short way of explaining it.
Makes sense.
So
To get them open.
what?
Makes sense. To get the people open.
Exactly. And show them the Christ within, I mean, that's exactly, I mean, if you're talking about how were they able to go from a small cult to a religion with 2 billion followers, I mean, that's his idea. Like, and, I mean, you can refute the evidence if you want, but he's traced the evidence back like well over 10,000 years for, and it's just not something that is an isolated incident. The ancient Greeks used drugs to find God. And then that is exactly what, Christianity, like the idea that he puts in the book is like they, they rewrote they rewrote the scripture to be very much like the Greek gods and what they were into, and that's how they were able to capture them and then capture the Roman Empire and everything. So it's a really interesting book. But again, what's the title? The immortality key. And you
Okay.
already intuited that, you feel immortal. And I mean, that's where the book, kind of shows you. So there is the unofficial prologue to our book, which is called Stealing Fire. Then you have our book, Consciousness in a Nutshell. The unofficial epilogue is the immortality key. You take all three of those books, you'll never see the world again. I mean, you'll never see the world the same again. And you
Okay.
might understand like how one could say, we are immortal.
Hmm.
Yeah. He's got a good quote before the start of the book. It's, if you die before you die, you won't die when you die. And that's an old Greek saying. And
Say that one more time.
if you die before you die, you won't die when you die. So the idea is that, we're born into this world, but, you can become immortal if you die inside this world. So you die in this world. So you die to your youth. And you accept this new life that you're given. So, the idea is that like you can either you're given that choice, which is like, all right, this is it. You're actually immortal. Do you want to keep going or do you want to reset? Like that feels like the kind of option that you're given in one of these moments. And I chose to come back to participate in the sorrows of life willingly. But like, it could have been that was too much of what I took that night, and that was it for me. I melted my brain. But I chose, no, 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 I'm coming back. And what did it cost me? It cost me a lot, but I came back. So
Oh, no, give me 1 second.
all right,
That's actually the. God damn it.
little
There's a
push.
diabetes sensor. If I don't check it, it's just gonna keep making noise, even with the notifications off.
Okay, well, it's good. It's trying to keep you, make sure you don't like
Yeah, but the thing is,
spiral out.
it's like almost always normal. You know.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, but it loses
good.
signal every now and then.
Man, I've seen someone where they like, what's it called when they don't have enough sugar and they can't even finish a sentence.
Yeah, it's definitely happened to me. I believe that one is hypoglycemic.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
That was happening to me a lot. When I got diagnosed, my A1C was at 13. And from what they told me, like pretty close to could have been in a coma. Weird thing is, I felt great when it happened.
Really?
I used to weigh about like 500 pounds. So I lost the weight years before I got the diabetes. So, kind of everything from those moments, I felt great. So, what made you write the book?
Well, from age 22 to age 29, I watched one TED Talk every single day with breakfast, at least one TED Talk,
Okay.
because it was like a way to keep me in a good mood, and to like show me like, okay, there are people out there doing good things, they're contributing to the field of time in a positive way, and you can be like that too. And so it was a good way to just like energize myself for the day. At the end of that, like, those 7 years, my brain was completely changed. Like I had so many different doors open in my mind of like interesting things like physics and cosmology. Like I was just into everything. And
Yeah.
then, it was like, okay, well, I want to give people like what I would call, quote unquote, the polymath's perspective, like somebody who was able to research and read a lot of books, etc., like would come to the same perspective that you find in a lot of different polymaths. Like you can liken it to the astronaut overview effect. Um, so if you have
What
that,
is that?
so apparently for astronauts, when they're like, I guess either going to come back or whatever, just seeing Earth from, being outside of Earth and seeing Earth as
From
this,
that side.
yeah, changes you because you don't see anymore. You're not looking at a map where there's black lines delineating, Texas or Florida or whatever it happens to be, or, Czechoslovakia. Like there are no borders. It's just you see one planet, one
Mm.
organism, one thing, and that's home, and that's our planet. And so it changes them, and it's called the astronaut overview effect or the overview effect. And so I kind of had that experience with the near death experience, and experiences of Nirvana following that. And I wanted to share it with people inside of a TED talk. And so I wrote a TEDx talk that I never got to perform. But once I was done with that, there was so much research that went into it. I was like, okay, there's something here. And, on a plane back on a plane ride back from Kauai. I wrote like 4 chapters and I didn't even realize what it was. And I was like, oh, this is the book. This is the book. This TED Talk is actually like the key chapter that says everything all in one chapter. But then I need to, prime the audience for accepting this idea. So, the idea would be, if I was able to give this talk, which, I'm trying to as well at this moment in time, but give that talk in like 20 minutes, kind of like get people to understand this astronaut overview effect idea inside of 20 minutes. And so it's funny because it connects to what you were talking about. Like, one of the lines in that chapter or TED Talk is first law of thermodynamics. But I'm using that same idea to
Yeah.
connect the idea that, we are energy. That energy that started the Big Bang is not separate from you. It is still informing you. It's still banging, except now it sounds like the words coming out of my mouth. So, we're not, it isn't that the universe banged, 13.82 billion years ago and now we're here. It's that is still the same energy and now it is producing this sentence.
Hmm.
It takes a little bit of time to get people to that idea, but that's the idea.
Hmm. That kind of goes back to the oneness, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as far as practicality wise, how does this help?
So I think, I think the ideal human being is probably someone who lives on both levels, where they understand, that everything's all one, that we are one with nature, that we are connected with nature, we are a product of nature, as Alan Watts would say, like the universe, in the same way that a tree apples, the universe peoples. And so it has peopled, and we are that, so we are production. I'm sorry, we are we are the universe experiencing itself subjectively, which would be Bill Hicks' line. Um, and uh, and so if you can hold on to that idea, even when you're getting cut off in traffic, even when like you just get this crazy bill come out of nowhere in the mail, and you're like, what? How am I ever gonna, like? Or if you get your ribs cracked or something like that, or you get stabbed, like, just the idea that, like, you are that essential eternal energy, and this is the playground where we play and experience the moment that we're not. We experience this life so so we can have a human experience, but that ultimately it is okay. It is all good. We are all connected. And so if you can hold on to that while you're in these moments where life is testing you, then it seems to help a little bit. I think it does. I mean, it kind of keeps me in like this. I have like a background smile all the time because it's all good. Like I've
Yeah,
experienced. Yeah,
I
if
completely get that.
yeah, like if I've experienced Nirvana and I know that Nirvana is nothing other than this same moment, then it's just like I'm choosing not to see the Nirvana right now. I'm choosing not to see the perfection right now. But at any moment in time that I want to, like, you could, but it's
Yeah,
it's hard to get that experience unless you, I don't know, meditate all the time, which I try, but it doesn't, you can't force it into happening. You just
yeah,
can't. So,
yeah,
because like the second you try to, you were talking about I can't shut my mind off. It is the thinking, it is the movement that is keeping you out of infinity, out of eternity. Because when you are in that space, we'll call it nirvana, it's, I mean, the way I would describe it as, it's a moment of absolute centeredness and stillness. So there's no movement in your mind, no movement in your body. You're not trying to go anywhere. You're not wanting anything. You're not thinking about anything. You're not trying to get something. Like, you're just content. And so that's like you're trying to keep breathing and also not move. Does that make sense? Like, so you want to be like, it's like rubbing your head, patting your, I'm sorry, it's like patting your head, rubbing your tummy, and doing something else at the exact same time. It's very hard to do. But you tap into it accidentally a few times and you're like, oh, okay, this is what it is.
yeah. Gives you that perspective.
Yeah. And so, I mean, perspective is everything. Like, if that's one theme of the book, it's, our perspectives are changeable. And, that's why the psychedelic plant medicines are being studied, because we have these pathological belief filters that obstruct our view. We get, let's say, like depression, for example. Depression is a severe pessimism bias. So where did the bias come in? What caused you? what are the 2 or 3 instances in your life that have made you start to think your life is worthless and life is meaningless and it never should have been? Like there's a handful of experiences that you could probably call to mind that are informing that belief. And then because you have that belief and it's set in place, all you can see is there's nothing. Why wake up? Why move? Why go try? Why do this podcast? Like that's where my mind would go. And I've been depressed so many times. Like it's brutal. I hate it. But ultimately it tells you like what you're what you're ignoring, what you're pretending not to know.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Over the past couple of months, I've kind of had this idea in my head every now and then. It's did I find peace because I found spirituality, or did I find spirituality because I found peace? I'm not sure what the answer even is, but I know from that it kind of goes to what you were saying. A perspective from that point when stuff happens, except for traffic when I forget. When stuff happens, it's like, all right, go through it, no big deal. Go through the next thing, you know.
So where did you find your peace?
I don't even know exactly where it happened. It was something for years, and sometimes you're out front, sometimes you got to take a step back. But I was trying to control how I would react to things,
Mm-hmm.
and then after years of trying to control how I react to things, I just started reacting to things differently. And
Okay.
then when I saw that happen, and friends were like, "Oh, you're not a jackass now." I was like, "Oh, okay." I noticed things just, were a lot more peaceful,
Hmm.
you know? And surprisingly, things got more peaceful. Life just got easier, because at one point, you're out there on the rat race, just chasing after your goal.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed when you take a step back, your goals kind of just come to you.
Mm. Yeah.
It would, I don't mind that. That's pretty awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool,
mean,
man.
stuff still happens, shit happens, but, again, it's how do you deal with it?
Exactly. And you brought up a good point, which is like if you can get out of your reactivity zone, you're automatic. Sometimes you need that automatic flow state, which is great, but other times the automatic is not good, which is like
Yeah.
your, I don't know, default reaction to some, to being to feedback or something like that. You know, like we all have certain ways of reacting that aren't great. And the more we can like figure out, okay, what is the pattern that is what is that pattern? Like, why am I so reactive? And then try to change it, right? Or yeah, or just change it.
Yeah.
Not try, just do it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is just how we're, I guess, programmed into, this happens, you got to do this. You're a man, do this. And then you get older, you can tweak certain things here and there. You know?
Agreed. And so, like the book, we do like kind of a long form argument of just like showing people, case after case after case of just, yes, you are programmed, right? But like you can change your programming. Like we liken uh like your body to being like, like a source code. Are you familiar with that term, source code, for web design?
I know it has something to do with computers. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So like have you ever like went on a web page and you right click and then hit view source and you can see like whatever web page you're on, you can see the source code that
Oh,
produced
the
that web page?
hieroglyphics thing that comes up.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like the idea is that like, we experience consciousness. We experience that tiny sliver of consciousness, which is, 500 milliseconds behind the moment. We get this synthesized story, which it's not raw perceptions we're getting. We're getting filtered perceptions. Everything's filtered by your experiences. You experience your life, but you look through the lens and the prism of your interpretations. So how you have experiences, and then you have interpretations about those experiences, and then those interpretations give you a certain belief filter, and then you see the world, whatever that belief filter happens to be. So, for example, it could be that like you have a category in your head, which is like, all right, well, there's only really 2 billion people on this planet. Like, sure, they'll say that there's 7 or 8 billion people, but there's only 2 billion people in my in group. Everybody else is in my out group. So there's only really 2 billion people. The rest are not exactly people. You know what I mean? So you can imagine how that is a pathological belief filter to have. But you talk to someone that's like a Christian, for example, that may be their idea. So they have 2 billion people, inside of Christianity, and everybody else, well, they're just not saved yet, and they'll never be saved. So like, is that like that's not right? Like to if you get that unitive experience, that moment of timelessness and selflessness, etc. Like if you get that moment, everybody is involved. Everybody is the same. We're all equal. So that's the moment. I mean, that's the idea to hold on to. But you could have been programmed that if someone's not in your in group, then they are in your out group necessarily. But why do you have to make in groups and out groups? Why do you
I
have to
think
do that?
that's just our nature. I mean, we're all part of our own tribe. Like I don't really believe in culture and all the divisions. Like in my opinion, most religions are all the same religion. They're
Yeah,
based off of the same stuff. I mean, a name might be different here or there, but it's all the same message.
yeah,
But for instance, today I was doing a mortgage video on the bank shutting down. Three banks shut down, two American and one that isn't. In the video, I just went, yeah, three banks shut down, these two, blah, 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 and the other one's not even American, so who cares? Probably not the right thing to say, but, again, that's, it's just kind of how we think, like, what's our tribe, you know?
yeah. I mean, it's hard to hold on to like all is love, etc. It's perspective. It's hard. Yeah, and I mean, you're right. Like we need. I mean, we are very tribal people, and so we produce in groups and out groups all the time. But if you can hold on to that meditation or that idea that that's not the greatest idea, not the greatest way to go about your life, then I think it opens up your experience and your ability to have empathy for other
Yeah.
people because it's the ego, right? The ego part of ourself that always cuts us off from reality, cuts us off from everybody else, and says, "No, you're separate. No, you're special. No, like whatever it happens to be, it'll tell you whatever story will make you believe that you're somehow better than, less than, worse than, like whatever it happens to be, whatever your game is. It's upwards and downwards comparisons all day. That's all the ego wants to do.
Yeah.
It's just what it wants to do. And
Yeah.
so the idea with meditation is, or flow states, or sensory deprivation tanks, or psychedelics is you can get that thinking mind to shut off for a second. And so Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who had that My Stroke of Insight book, she experienced that too. But it took her having a stroke, her left hemisphere of her brain, where the language centers are housed, that almost entire hemisphere like got destroyed. So, but then she had peace and silence and nirvana for like 5 weeks straight. Whoa. So then she
Wow.
makes a recovery that takes 8 years so she could come back and tell people, no, nirvana is everybody can have it. And yeah, I had to have a stroke to get it, but now I know you can have it without it. Like it's just we have this ego mind, this thinking mind that wants to always rank and order and list and classify and categorize and whatever else. It wants to do all these things, but if you can meditate or just figure out how to, some sort of focus practice or movement practice will help you get stay in your body more, stay in your perceptions versus your thoughts because it's thoughts that cause the suffering. It's the desires, so you can get that under control though. I'm
So
working on it.
let me ask you this, because over the weekend, I fell victim to my ego.
Okay.
Yeah, so I used to have like, the green screen and all, and I didn't like the way it looks. I was like, you know what? It's green. I'll go to Home Depot. I'll buy green and turn the wall green. Right.
Okay.
I go to Home Depot. I do my part. I know what I want to buy. I bring the money. I bring the thing to the counter. My part's done. The guy at the register decided that my part wasn't done. wanted me to go back to the paint part, all this. I'm like, yo, get on your phone, just call them. I'm not going back there. They disagreed. So I knew it was my ego. I left the thing and I walked away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just and I knew I was doing it too. I
Okay.
was like, you know what, I'm tired. I'm not doing this.
Hmm.
I I leave. I go get something to eat, and then I'm like, damn, I don't got the paint. Like all this stuff, I don't even got the paint. So the next day, I actually go online. I'm like, all right, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna order it online, have them bring it to the curb, so they just bring it to the car. I don't got to speak to nobody,
Okay.
right? And you would think there's no flaw in that plan. I get there, there's supposed to be the curbside parking for them to bring it. It ain't there.
Mhm.
So I call them up. I'm like, where's the curbside thing? They're like, park at the sign. I'm like, what sign? I'm here. There's no sign. There's a handicap sign. They're like, oh, bring it up to here. I'm like, so you want me to double park? I gotta be honest, I wanted to leave again.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I need the pain more than the ego.
Uh,
Any tips on how to get around that though?
mm. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're already on the path though, because like you noticed it. You're like, I'm reacting in a way. Like you realized you were reacting in the way when you left the first time. Like you
Yeah.
realized what you were doing. So it's just like instead of just realizing that you're doing it, like maybe it's like you turn to leave and you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna stay and I'm just gonna, because this is just me speculating, right? It sounds like it's the ego, like, why am I having to do this? Why am I having to go back there? This is your job. Like,
Oh
so
yeah.
it's saying like it's like like I already put in as much effort as I'm going to, and if you're not gonna do it, then I will leave. Like is that right? Does that sound
Yeah,
accurate?
pretty much. I refuse to use the self checkout stuff at the supermarket.
I know, me too, man.
Yeah, I'm like,
I
yeah, I
can't
already
stand it.
did my hard day of work. I'm done.
Yeah. And so I mean, like I don't know if that's necessarily an ego thing as much because it's like I don't think that's the way it should be. I don't think we need to go to the automatic self checkout thing. It's not. I don't like it. I don't. It's not ideal. I would rather have a real conversation with a cashier and have them do it because
Yeah,
yeah, I
let
mean
them get
like
paid.
exactly they want to get paid and so like I feel like those examples are slightly different. But do you think they're the same? Am I not seeing the ego in myself when I because I refuse to do the self checkout sometimes, especially at Sprouts or something. I'm like, no, I know you guys will open up a line, and I would like for you to open up a line, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think a big part of it is ego. I think so.
I mean, there's desire and want because we both want it not to be that the automatic thing. We want the human connection of them checking us out. So it's like, but at the same time, but I mean, I guess the difference would be like if they weren't going to, and then I just dropped my shit on the ground and left it there. Like that would be not a
Can I do
great
that?
move. Yeah, because it like then somebody has to put it all back. Like, and I could have done that, I guess, but like I don't know. I don't like the trend towards automatic self checkouts either. So
Yeah, no, it's we're gonna end up paying for it. We don't produce anything, and now those jobs are gonna be gone too. It's not good.
agreed,
But
agreed,
we will see, I guess.
and not good for the employees. So
No, definitely not. Not good for them. Not good for us taxpayers. Not good for anybody.
yeah, so yeah, I think they're slightly different because one is I don't know, like I'm not going to take this shit anymore, like and just leaving which is that was yours, and this one's like we're trying to get them to not do the automatic thing. Like they need to have at least one or two lanes open always. Like I
Yeah.
think, I admire the self checkout sometimes. Like it's useful, but like I don't want it to be the only thing. That's my thing. I don't want it to be the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So I've always been told the ego is just bad. And
Mhm.
for the most part, I agree. But I think it has its good parts too. For instance, the at facing death, one of the things that made me not give up was my ego.
Hmm.
So is it possible for ego to be a good thing? Or to have it balanced, I guess, more so.
Wow. Yeah, you hit it right there. Balanced. That's the idea. So we need an ego self to help us navigate this complex social environment we find ourselves in, right? But if it goes on hyperdrive, that's when we get problems. So when someone has an inflated ego, and we should also clarify that, the way psychologists use ego is sometimes different than the way that we just use it in casual conversation. So if somebody thinks very highly of themselves, we might say, well, they have a big ego. But like really psychology, like the way that they describe the ego is more like the part of yourself that manages the external world and is self-conscious. So it's the part of your brain that is self-conscious. And so, with the flow states, it's like you can have consciousness without self-consciousness. You can have knowledge without commentary. So, and those are amazing, powerful states to be in. But your ego, which is underpinned by the default mode network in the brain, that is literally not firing in its usual way. So it's suppressed during these flow states or psychedelic states. Um, so the ideal way is to have it balanced. So if you have a hyperactive default mode network, you likely have anxiety or depression. They're
You,
using
you said if you have a hyper what?
If you have a hyperactive default mode network, so it is this network of brain regions in your brain, obviously, that light up whenever you're thinking about yourself or thinking about, self versus other modalities of thought, self-referential thoughts, autobiographical thinking, mental time travel, extracting yourself from the present moment and thinking about something else, all that, you'll see increases in blood flow to the default mode network. So increases to the neural substrates of the ego. So
What is
that's
autobiography? What was that you said? Autobiographical what?
autobiographical thinking. So just thinking about yourself.
Oh,
So, so basically the idea is like this. So we need an ego to help us navigate the world, right? To get things, to pick things up, to think about like to chop our life up into like beginning, middle, end, like things that we need and want. Like you need an ego, right?
yeah,
But when it's hyperactive, when it's like a screensaver that toggles on every 3 seconds and says, well, you should have this. Why did they say that to me? Do they know who I am? Do they know who my father is? Like, shit like that. Like, like that's what you don't want, right?
right.
And so, I mean, I have those thoughts all the time, like all the time. But like, it just lets me know, like, okay, why are they coming up? Like, why am I allowing them to come up? Because if you meditate for long enough, you realize your thoughts will carry on their own accord without you doing anything. Like they're so automatic sometimes. Sure, we can think in a very purposeful way, but we can also take deep breaths in a purposeful way. But breathing is mostly unconscious. So thinking, a lot of it is unconscious. It's just going on, going on, going on. But the more you meditate, the more you insert this pause between your thought and a second round of elaborative analysis, like going back into it. So you have these thoughts and you can just let them go, just like water off a duck's back, or you can engage them and then you're in the trap, you're in the cycle, you're thinking about it. But like, I have these thoughts sometimes and they just hit me and I'm like, just let it go. Just let it go. Like, and it's not like ignoring them, it's acknowledging them and saying, there is anger, there is uncertainty, there is insecurity, there is sadness, whatever it happens to be, but just acknowledging it for what it is, and then just choosing to recommit to this moment, like the perfection of this moment. That's what I want to live here, not in the past or in the future, because that's the ego. It's like I want to pull you into the future about what might happen. I want to pull you back to 1986 and talk about this shit that happened. Like it wants to do that,
Yeah.
but if you could stay here, that's where the eternity is.
Mm.
The eternal now, the eternal present. So it's the ego that locks us out of that. But, like this network gets suppressed in flow states or sensory deprivation tanks or, like, I mean, snowboarding or surfing. And then you get to experience this moment of selflessness and you're like, oh, this is better. Like, I don't need this thinking mind to be on all the time. So, I mean, meditation's great, dude.
Let me ask you this: if this falls under any of that, because honestly, I'm not sure. I notice if something happens and it makes me a little bit upset, let's say, I'll start taking deep breaths, probably even close my eyes too, or I'll count to 10 forwards and backwards and kind of just let everything go.
Mhm.
Can't explain how it happens, why it happens, but it happens. Does that fall? Where does that fall?
I mean, that sounds like a useful tool and practice. I'm sure you picked it up. Where'd you pick that up from?
The count to 10 and backwards, I'm pretty sure I saw that on some sort of comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where. I know I saw it somewhere. And the breathing thing is, I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. I mean, it's very much in the common culture. So, but like, I mean, what you're doing there is you're focusing on an object like your breath, or even just the mental. I don't know. It's almost like a mantra of like 1, 2, 3. Like that in itself is kind of like a mantra. So you're just focusing on something else, and instead of letting your attention just get pulled away, like a dog on a leash is like yanking your arm. Like you're like, no, I'm going to tell you where we're walking right now. I'm going to walk to 10 and I'm going to walk backwards from 10. I'm going to breathe 10 deep breaths, and then see how I feel. The I'm going to quote her again. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor talks about how, like for an emotion, like once, let's say you get really upset about something, someone cuts you off. We'll do this again. Someone cuts you off. Like it's going to run in your brain and body for about 90 seconds, that emotional circuit of like anger and fuel and rage, and like you can't even imagine that, like you want to catch up with them and like slam them or something, right? It's going to run for about 90 seconds
Okay.
unless you re-engage it. If you re-engage it, you could stay mad forever. You could stay mad for the next 3 weeks. Like that guy cut me off. He needs to. I'm gonna find that Pathfinder. Like you could do that, or you could let it
Okay.
go.
So kind of just like loops.
Yeah, instead of letting it loop, you're using a focus practice, a mantra of sorts, to not. You're like, no, this is. I'm not gonna let it bother me. But like and I think it's important to distinguish that sometimes we need to acknowledge what it is and why it's causing these feelings to come up, but like we don't need to, I don't know, give them a microphone all day. Like you can let this part of yourself is telling you something. So let it speak for a second, but it doesn't have to hold the microphone all day and then keep holding the microphone tomorrow and forever. Like no. Like that's when you need to like somehow figure out like to let that thing go, like on a deeper level. Like maybe just saying I'm going to let it go isn't enough. You need to
Yeah.
journal about it or talk to a trained professional about it, or just to your friend, like I keep thinking about this situation and I need to talk about it. Are you open to that? And they say, okay. And then you just, because talking is a form of thinking, it's a way of discharging, it's a way of processing that emotion. And so I believe truly that like, these interactions that we get trapped in sometimes, like a piece of our mind gets trapped in that interaction. So we have like a horrible interaction a few years ago, and a part of your mind still thinks about it, still thinks about it, still thinks about it. I acted in a really shitty way. I sold out my humanity. It was just a few years ago. I did a really bad thing and I can't stop thinking about it. Like so what do I need to do to not think about that anymore? Now that's a powerful question you can ask. It depends on the situation, but like I've written letters that you just burn at the end of them,
I've
and
heard
that
of that.
helps. You've heard of that too? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Because forgiveness is about you. It's you're not always get sometimes the person is not here anymore.
Yeah.
Or you can't speak to them for whatever reason. So you can't always get the closure that you find in movies or television shows. So you have to find it yourself. And sometimes that closure looks like, with a trained professional, or writing that letter that you have to burn. Maybe you have to write it twice or more than that. I don't know. It depends. But part of your mind is trapped in that scenario because you haven't learned from it. So you have to like, I think the biggest thing to like overcome some sort of trauma is, okay, you have to take full responsibility for that situation and what happened, and then commit to never letting like the actions that got you there happen again.
Yeah.
Like so, yeah, whatever happens to be. Like I could go into a specific example if we had to, but
That's like claiming your peace.
Yeah, I like that. Claiming your piece, man.
Yeah, I should
And
write
we
that one
are,
down.
you should. I think it's good. Yeah, man. Because it's there for everybody to claim, but it's funny as an immortal being what you would do with eternity. Because there would be moments when you would want to feel bad and sad and lonely. Like you want to feel pain.
Yeah,
I
I never
mean,
understood that. The blues.
uh,
I, me and my ex broke up a few months ago.
okay.
I noticed I'm listening to the blues music, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm thinking about it. I'm not feeling happy. Why am I going to listen to something that's not happy? Why the hell do we do that?
This is the you want to feel, man. I mean, we hit the
No, not
jackpot,
really.
right? But see, that's the thing. It's like, we are such complex creatures that a part of you wants to feel it, even though, like, like, okay, so she dumped you a few. Wait, did you say a few months ago? You guys
Yeah,
ended,
me
or
and her
what?
broke up in December.
Okay, was it mutual?
I guess so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but you were upset by it still.
Oh yeah.
So even though a part of you wanted to end it, a part of you was still upset.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. It's like, we are such complex creatures that a part of you, although you could be like, I don't want to be poor. I hate being poor. A part of you wants it. And that's the weirdest thing to acknowledge. But like that's the situation. So like, you get broken up with or something like that. Like a part of you is like so mad that she broke up with you, but then a part of you is like, no, what, fuck her. Like, I'm better off without her. Like 10% of me is ecstatic, but 90% of me is sad and wants to listen to blues music or whatever it is, So it's like you wanna feel it, but you don't. And
Mhm.
that's life, man. Like, Joseph Campbell has the idea like, we're not looking for a meaning of life as much as we're seeking an experience of being alive. And I like that. We're here for an experience. And that's what we're getting. Because as an infinite immortal being, if we're agreeing that that's what the ultimate reality is, like play is like the only personality you could ever hold on to inside that infinite arena. And I know because I've been trapped there. Like I had an experience where I was trapped inside a place that felt like limbo. That would be the easiest term to call it, limbo. And I was trapped there for 10,000 years. And I don't even say that. I'm not like it felt that like that. And I was trapped there for so long. It's like, whatever you think you are, your identities, like, in the book, we talk about layers of self, layers of identity. And so one of your identity layers is Mo, another one is American. Another one is like, like I'm just going to do it for me. So it's like, like I don't know, American, like you could say Methodist, like it could be like all these different layers, but then all those melt off. And then the only thing you can hold on to in this infinite arena is play, because that's the only thing that you will be and you are. You are ultimately that which plays. And so you come back into this world to play. And you leave those little small identities that melted off. Like, I literally couldn't hold on to anger or fear or um addiction, all those things that were holding me back, like that's what got melted off in those 10,000 years. It's like, you think those are your identities, but they will run their course in that time period that you get stuck in an infinite loop or something. It was humbling, dude, that experience. I
So
gotta say.
with the loop, when you got out of it, did you still feel those things?
hmm. I guess I want to liken it to like this. Imagine that like you had some sort of like okay, like a thumb drive, right? Imagine there was like a thumb drive in the back of your neck, and like I pulled it out for a second, and then like you're just everything, all your memories, all the belief filters you had, all your perspectives, all your religious certainties were now stuck inside that shell that just went whoop, and I pulled out the thumb drive. Now I put it back in after a long period of time. you would now like you have all these perspectives and beliefs and ideas and memories. You still have them. You still have access to them. But then you're like, I was just over here where none of that mattered, and now I'm stuck back here. Like, okay, this is what's not serving me. And so it gives you a more of that awareness of reactivity versus being consciously present. So you just become more consciously present after an experience like that because you never want to go back there again. I mean, it felt like death. It felt like I had let my highest self down, and that's how they were going to let me know how much I'd messed up. Is okay. Well, why don't you stay in this room, a little timeout for 10,000 years, and then when you're ready to play with humanity, we'll plug you back in. But until you figure out your shit, you're going to be stuck here until you confront why you're acting out. Why are you not being your highest self?
Okay.
That experience, that 10,000 years, that happened about 3 months before I wrote the first draft.
Oh.
Bro, like I came out of that experience like charged, like so charged.
What is it with experiences like that that pushes in that direction?
Uh, well, I mean, if we didn't have any adversity, what would we talk about, right? Like, like if there wasn't.
Pop culture, I guess.
That's great.
They seem happy, don't they?
They do. They do. But even then, like, so many songs are like about love and loss. Like, like, but you can't have, I don't know, you can't have one without the other. So like you can't have that up without the down, the north without the south, the positive without the negative. So in those experiences, you see how they are connected. Life is relationship. So then you come back here and then you're like, well, it has to be that there's good days and bad days. It has to be that it rains sometimes. It couldn't be any other way. There has to be death in order for life to go on. There's no way. Without there is no existence is being. Being is existence. They're kind of like synonyms, right? So being is a becoming. Being is forever a becoming. Existence is forever a becoming. So we are always moving towards something. And so in order to move towards something, you need to have something coming against you. So there needs to be opposition for life to exist at all. And those experiences like the one I talked about, like the 10,000 years ones, was just extreme opposition and extreme time dilation. It gave me a wealth of experiences to draw from because it felt like there were 10,000 years worth of experiences that happened. And if you could take Aristotle's idea of, time as a measurement of change, right? So my mind, the cycles of mind, like the RPMs, just went because I had taken a, quote unquote performance enhancer, like an amplifier of mental processes we call LSD, and I took way too much. And I mean, that's what happens. If you want to go into that, I'll tell you exactly what kind of happens, but that's what happens.
Hmm. Um, so I'm not too familiar with shrooms and that. Does it affect people differently depending on what their mind state actually is?
100%. Yeah. So, they are like, we call it like nature's key to the unconscious or nature's microscope. So it's kind of like swallowing a bunch of little microscopes and you never know what they're going to show you. Sometimes it's fun and you can do it at a party or whatever. Like, there can be light experiences, but then you can have heavier doses, which give you more profound experiences, more experiences that happen, that seem like you dissolve completely and you enter into another realm. Like, people talk about DMT breakthrough experiences. What are they breaking through? They're breaking through the limitations of their ego boundaries of this self they've constructed, this perception of themselves. They break through that. They go to the garden or whatever they want to call it, and then they come back. And it's like, oh, I saw aliens. Okay, whatever. Like, that's your language game. Fine. Some people call it aliens. Some people call it elves. Some people, like me, say it's the possibility space. You get, when your ego and your identity are constraining you, then you're not in the possibility space. But when you dissolve all that and you melt into universality or just being one with everything, then that is the possibility space. You could call that heaven. You could call that nirvana, whatever it is. but that's where ultimate possibility and playfulness lives, because everything is possible. But then you need to come back, right? So you come back here, and then you're like, okay, I can't exist there all the time, but at least I can hold on like a tiny rope to that place and be like, all right, I remember what it's all about. And then now, try to go through life. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but it depends, like on what you take, where'd you get it, what's the scenario, who you're with. Like it all depends, because it depends on, like what experience are you really wanting. And it's not even what you want, it's what you will, it isn't the experience you want, it's the experience you'll get, the experience you deserve. Like, and it might not be what you want. Like I didn't want to get trapped for 10,000 years, but I talk about that experience, every now and then. Like it was, I mean, changed me, man. Like the 2013 near death experience changed me. Like I can talk about it from an ego perspective, where it's like that was a horrible thing that happened, but on a more responsible perspective, like I'm glad it happened.
That's what I was actually going to ask you. Are you glad it
Really?
happened? Yeah.
It's hard because, like, I my entire life was built towards being an actor, and like that's what I was doing. And then, like in order to come back, it was like I had to give up that life. It was like, I came back and got shoved into this body, and I was like ecstatic that I had a body again. But then it was like, like that thumbstick we were talking about, that thumb drive getting plugged back in. I was like, what am I supposed to act now? I'm supposed to like act like everything's like I didn't just see everything. Like, how am I supposed to? I can't. I used to do stand up. It's like, how am I supposed to stand up and do dick jokes now when like like I have all this other knowledge? And so it's like my body, my entire psyche didn't want to play that game. The acting game, the stand up game, it didn't want to play that game. It was like, we've seen something else. We have more to offer this world, and we said we were going to come back and live with integrity. And this isn't engaging our entire being. You know, acting and stand up is just not enough for us. We need something else. And so it's like, okay, well, what do you need? It's like, why don't you tackle the most complex subject on the planet, consciousness, and then we'll take it from there. But that shit's true, dude.
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely get that.
So it's like, yeah. Anyway.
One of the things that I've noticed is a lot of outside things affect us inwards. And by that I mean music, for instance. I grew up listening to Onyx, or like the way we're talking about blues.
Mhm.
You're not gonna listen to that and then, like, have a big cheesy smile on your face.
Onyx?
Hardcore rap.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Basically the music that the robbers rob with.
All right.
Yeah. So, you can't listen to that and then, go do charity work. That's not really the way that is. Even the way you dress, like I notice if I'm stuck in traffic and I'm wearing a suit, chances are I'll be a little bit more relaxed. If I'm stuck in traffic and I'm wearing a hoodie, maybe not as relaxed.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, so you said, when you have it, it depends on who you're around and I guess the music that's there, the environment, right?
Hmm. And your mindset too. Like, I mean, like, God forbid, let's say like you had a death somewhere in your friend or family circle, and then you took something, like, wow, like
Oh,
you're probably gonna meet somebody, like you're probably gonna have to confront a lot of stuff. Like, that
yeah,
might not
that
be the
doesn't sound
best
good.
time to do it. I don't know. Maybe that's your thing. But yeah, it depends. That's for sure.
People do that purposely at that moment.
I did. My best friend died, and I remember that night. Like I took an ecstasy tablet.
Okay.
That sounds so clinical. I took an ecstasy tablet, but I did. It helps, man. Like
It did.
it helps. But I mean, again, that's there are like drugs that kind of enhance your ego, and there are drugs that um, dissolve your ego. And so LSD and psilocybin will be ones that dissolve your ego. Cocaine, methamphetamines, those will be ones that enhance your ego. Caffeine enhances your ego. And so MDMA like helped me kind of like process and that's why they're studying it for PTSD. It helped me process the death of my friend, but it actually wasn't until 6 years later when I had that 2013 near death experience that I really let go of his death. Like until that moment, he, I dreamt about him. It just like that death, like his life and death, like operated me. It was not just my story; it was the story that I lived by. Like I had a best friend and now he's gone. I will never have another best friend again. I didn't consciously make that choice. I never said I'm never going to have a best friend again, but my unconscious made that choice. And so, because my unconscious made that choice, I lived in that decision for 6 years. So, I pushed guy friends away. I pushed people away. It's not like I did this on purpose. I didn't understand that's what I was doing. And then I had a transcendent or mystical type experience, and your body resets, your mind resets. You see this code like flash before you, and you're like, holy shit, I'm pushing people away because I'm too scared, because I'm too afraid of getting hurt. I would rather,
Yeah, you don't
it
want to
be
go
on
through
my
that again.
terms. Exactly. I don't want to give another eulogy again. So it was like, okay, well then you'll never have another best friend. And that was the universe I lived in until 6 years later. And then boom, had an experience. It was like, well, you could let that go. And what if you did? What would that look like? And then you're in the possibility space and you're like, well, it looks like you could have another best friend again. It looks like you could get married. It looks like a lot of things. It looks like you would be a much better member of society because you wouldn't be holding on to this pain. Dude, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Because it's like you take an experience like that, like my best friend died, you take two more experiences and you got a belief filter. And you're like, the world is fucked up and wrong, never should have been. And then what where do you go from there? Like, but it just takes a few horrible experiences for you to judge reality, judge creation, judge yourself, and then do what? I don't know. Like, I mean, school shootings are happening all the time. And it's
Yes.
because of just a few handful of situations that, like, if they could have processed that trauma, if they could have, you know, reevaluated what happened and been okay with it, been okay with their life story, they wouldn't have done it. But, I mean, it took me like nearly dying to have that revelation. So yeah, for the book, like I wanted people to like be able to have that sort of revelation without ever having to take a psychedelic, without ever having to, have a near death experience. Like if you could repackage that experience inside of a novel, a creative nonfiction novel that was entertaining enough that they could understand and intellectually, like, I guess, empathize with someone who went to the bottom and back, like, that'd be worth coming back for.
Mm. Yeah, like letting people learn from your writing rather than them having to experience it and suffer through it to learn it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what interests me is trying to bring less suffering into the world because for the not like all of my life or something, but like for a good chunk of my life, I wasn't bringing happiness into the world as much as I was bringing misery and suffering. So I remember, the brainwashing powers of nihilism and like nothing matters, I don't matter. We're just molecules bouncing around in a void. So what does it matter? That was like my MO. Like I lived by this science, like that scientific perspective of just atheism or whatever you want to call it, like nothing matters. And then to like realize, no, actually everything matters and you matter and you are everything. So, if you don't participate in the field of time adequately, appropriately, whatever that means for your life, then you're not gonna love it. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna feel depressed. And that's why I kept getting depressed. It was like, you're better than this. So stop fucking around.
Okay.
That's what it was for me, man.
Mm.
I'm curious what you're not saying.
Hmm?
I'm curious what you're not saying because you're being pretty agreeable. So I'm curious if you're ever like, that sounds crazy.
No, a lot of the things you're saying, I kind of get. I mean, for instance, you bury enough people, you look at the world a certain way. Because, in all honesty, as connected as we all are, that's your world. You know, we're all connected. But the truth is, somebody on the other side of town could be living a completely different life. Forget that the kids picking cobalt right now, and our lives completely different.
Hmm.
So when you bury enough people, yeah, it's easier just not to have people close to you because you don't want to go through that again.
Right.
No, I was just thinking of that. I get that.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like, as people, we regulate each other's nervous systems, like we're always in dialogue with other people, talking with them, like even if it's just a cashier at the store or whatever, like you're always giving information, receiving information or energy, whatever you
Yeah,
want to
we
call
feed
it.
off of each other.
Yeah. And like, if something good happens, you want to tell your best friend, like you want to tell your mom or whatever. Like you want to, and then they give you like their reaction. It's like you feed off their reaction. Like they give you these feel good neurotransmitters and hormones. Like if you hug someone for more than 10 or 15 seconds, you're gonna get oxytocin release in your body, both your bodies. So it's like we are always regulating each other's nervous system. But when you don't have that, when you don't have a friend or a family member you can reach out to, what do? Well, you self medicate, you self regulate. I mean, how many movies have you seen where it's like something really horrible happens, and then the next thing you know, they go to the kitchen, they go to the cabinet, they get the bottle, and then they just like pound an entire like fifth of vodka, and you're like, oh my god! But they
Yeah,
just regulated their nervous system, didn't they? They got that immediate glutamate release, that immediate like feeling of like, whoa, like it was too painful to experience regular. So I'm gonna medicate with this alcohol, or this bowl, or whatever it is. So, you know, I mean, you can do it either way. It's not good to be on the pharmacology train. That's where I've lived a lot, you know, smoking weed and alcohol or whatever. Like those would be my ways of regulating my nervous system. But it's so much better if you can do it with other people because there's no withdrawals symptoms. There's no,
yeah.
yeah, like you don't feel it. There's no hangover from hugging someone for too long or just chatting with someone. Like I'm not gonna have a hangover after this. I'll probably be hungry and tired, but like
Let me ask you this, and I don't know how true this is. I heard somewhere that when you smoke, it opens up something that's usually closed, where like you taste things differently, you hear things differently.
yeah.
You've heard of something like that?
Yeah, I have. Um, so the idea is that like your brain is processing reality in a very specific way, right? But if you smoke marijuana, for example, parts of your brain that normally aren't involved are going to get involved. So there's more real estate of your brain involved in processing the auditory like the auditory cortex, for example. So like sound is coming in and you're processing it in a normal way. But if you take like cannabis, your perception of time starts to slow. So you're just more sunk in the moment. You start to hear every single drum kick in that song. So in that way, like more of your brain is now harvesting and processing that sensory information coming in from your ears than normal. So that would be a way that it's enhancing your ability to hear, for example. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's like enhancing your ability to hear, but it's definitely changing the way that you hear. And the same could be said of like LSD, for example. LSD and psilocybin both increase global network communication on your brain. So more of your brain will be talking to itself than normal. So more energy and power will be devoted to brain states than normal. So it's like taking a performance enhancer in a sense at a certain dosage. Um, so like you won't like if you're looking at a red brick wall, for example, you won't see it like you normally see it. You'll see it with more of your brain. So more time and energy is being processed into the sensory data. So the same. It's, I guess it would normally be the same amount of sensory data coming in every single time you see this red wall, this red brick wall. But if you're on a substance, for example, then you got more time and energy devoted into seeing this thing. And instead of seeing from memory, I've seen a thousand brick walls before. Instead of seeing with memory, it re-novelizes the environment so you can see it like you did when you were a child, like the first time you saw a red brick wall. It's it's pretty wild, dude. We talk about that in the book too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Huh.
It's like, I mean, that 2013 experience. It was like I'm staring at this red brick wall and this ATM right next to it, and I have no idea what the ATM is. I have no concept of it, an ATM. I don't know what it is. The fact that you could take a piece of plastic from your pocket and stick it into this machine embedded in a wall, and then it would somehow give you money to do what with? What the fuck is money? I don't understand what money is. Like, that's how you, like, you're seeing the world through your memories all the time, but at a certain dosage, you won't be able to have any memories. You won't be able to extract yourself in the present moment. That's the scariest thing imaginable. You can no longer imagine a time where you're not on something. You can no longer imagine a time where you took something. You can no longer imagine what your name is, that you have parents. Imagine
Oh, like
experience like
stuck.
that. Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's that 10,000 years. You could get stuck.
Mm.
Because you have no more like, at a certain dosage, it shuts out it shuts out your ability to access memories. And so you're just stuck in the now. You're stuck in the infinite now. And that's when you have that moment of eternity or infinity.
Mm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I heard this thing on a podcast somewhere that, and I forget which one, whether it was I forget which one, but when people take it, they go into another world, dimension, reality, whatever it is, but different people taking it at different times, different locations are seeing like the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it only lasts like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they can only pull out that, like 15 minutes worth of info, I guess. But recently they figured out how to microdose it to make it last longer.
Okay.
Did you hear anything about that?
Just basically just what you said. Like, I haven't heard too much more than that. But yeah, you're talking about dimethyltryptamine, DMT. And I have heard that they're trying to map that other world that you have access to. But I mean, yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me is the MEQ 30, so the Mystical Experience Questionnaire, which is a 30 questions questionnaire that they give out to the people that are in the Johns Hopkins studies for psilocybin or LSD or whatever it happens to be. Like, they give people this same 30 questions, and it's the similarities of these questions that are of interest to me, and we've already spoken about them: selflessness, timelessness, egolessness, wordlessness, like being one with nature, like all that stuff. This is what they're asking in that questionnaire. And so if you pull that thread deep enough, then you come to the conclusion that we are infinite, that we are eternal beings, and that this world is where we play. So I mean, I don't know what the DMT studies are yielding, but I mean, I don't know what they'll give you that's better than that. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. Some people talk about it being elves or aliens, but like, I just think that's just a certain language game people are playing. Like, they don't want to say gods or their organs or their demons. They don't want to use that word. They want to use some other word. So they use aliens or something.
But
But
if they're seeing something, that means that whatever they're seeing physically looks the same as what the other person's seeing, right?
I'm not sure about that because we can see in our minds and we can see with our eyes, but actually technically we're always seeing in our minds. But it's just like there is this physical reality that we're both agreeing on that we're here. But then you take a substance and then I mean, who knows what you're seeing at that point? Like it really does depend. Sometimes it's a hybrid of what's around you plus this other world. Sometimes you're fully sunk into this other world. I mean, my experience with DMT is like it was the most colors I'd ever seen, but like there were moments where it was like, oh, I'm in this bedroom, but then it's just like melting colors, like fractals everywhere, and then moments where it was just like, you're completely outside of whatever room you were just in. Like, you have to smoke this thing out of like a pipe, right? And before you even put down the pipe, you're out of this world.
Hmm.
Um, with the studies, I think they just do it intravenously, but
Yeah, I
it's
think
an
that's what I heard.
it's an interesting experience. Not one you want to like do all the time or anything, but it's an interesting experience, that's for sure. Especially because like you can't really be scared for it. You're gone before you even know how to get scared. Like, you know what I mean?
No, what do you mean?
Like if you took psilocybin or LSD, there's like a 45-minute to 90-minute come up where you're not like quite on it and you're kind of like on a roller coaster
Oh, it's
going
like,
up.
is it working yet?
Yeah, you're like, oh God, we're gonna go. It's like you don't know how much it is, how much it's gonna affect you, where you're gonna go. You don't know about all that. You
Do you
don't
need
know all that
more?
stuff. Yeah, exactly. But with the DMT, it's like, like basically the second you exhale the smoke, you're gone. You're just out. Like and to be a fly on the wall or just somebody watching, it looks like the person just, they exhaled and then they go like this. And then like, it looks like they're remming, like they're just eyes are rapid movement. It looks like they're dreaming. And that's kind of what they're doing. And they might have moments where they open their eyes for a second or something, but like, it's just they're just out.
Yeah, they're not really
Yeah.
there. Okay.
It's pretty weird slash interesting. Yeah.
And it usually has a positive effect on people.
Well, I think when you talk about any of these, I don't want to say psychedelics because I'm about to you mentioned the word ketamine. If you talk about like ketamine therapy or DMT or 5-methoxy DMT or psilocybin or LSD, they all have similar effects in this sense. They all disintegrate that default mode network. So they disintegrate the neural substrates of the ego. And when this gets offline for a certain amount of time, then when you come back, that's when your life starts to change because you had this experience that was outside of time or timelessness or whatever it is, and then when you come back your perspective has changed, like your mind is different. um Whatever connections, your connectome, your brain's the connection pathways in your brain are going to be slightly different, and you as an agent of experience are going to have a different perspective because you just went to another realm and maybe things were a little bit better there and you saw, like a dream, because these are often compared to dream states. It's like, you had this dream and it changed you in some way, and now because of this dream you come back in this world and you act differently. It's the same sort of idea, except this is the dream that, wow, feels realer than real life.
It woke you up.
How? Yeah, right. Good word. That woke you up. And that's what people use, awakening. Like, what? I thought you were already awake. Well, maybe you're kind of awake, but then you could awaken to who and what you really are and who and what this thing really is.
Yeah,
And
go up a level.
exactly, level up, dude.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. And you see, like, this is what was holding me back. Okay. Well, I can try to not have those patterns come back. And then, you're stuck in the game again. This is the game. All right, I'm trying not to let these patterns come back, but then they can't keep coming back. And so, it's that struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not easy. Worth it, but not easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. What advice would you give to somebody that's interested in exploring consciousness?
Um, well, exploring consciousness is as easy as living, like in the sense of like, you mean studying it or what do you mean exactly exploring it?
Let's say you take the regular person that, they don't really think past what are they gonna eat, what are they gonna spend $1 on? And that's kind of where it ends. And then let's say they have an experience, like they just had it. So they know they want to move in a direction, but they don't know where. Like you figured out, you want to do the book,
Mhm.
but it took you a while to get to that point,
Mhm.
right? So let's say somebody just had the experience, or even more, they want to skip the experience and just go past that. What advice would you give them?
So they had an experience of transcendence, or they had an experience of what exactly? Sorry.
Um, let's say they didn't even have the experience. Let's say that they just know that there's something more.
Mhm.
Like I got stabbed. I started writing that guidebook.
Mhm.
The reason I did that was completely different than the effect of what that did. You know, so like my advice to somebody would be, and find your peace. Like just start there. Do whatever it is to find that.
That's great advice, man. I mean, yeah,
To be
find
like
your
40 years
peace.
to figure it out, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, that's what we're after, right? Like, Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss. So, what is it that gives you bliss? And so that's what I would say, like, follow your unconscious. Your unconscious is like the white rabbit that's trying to lead you somewhere. So where is it trying to lead you? It's often sometimes like not exactly like you'll find yourself doing something and then your heart's not in it. And then you're like, okay, well, why is my heart not in it? And then you're like, okay, well, this is the wrong job. I need to do something else. So it's a lot of trial and error. So a lot of
yeah.
failing. And that's been my life. I've done every single job there is, not every single job, but like so many different jobs just to know that, okay, I never want to do this again. I never want to do this again. Okay, this was interesting. And you find out more as you fail, and hopefully you fail upwards. But I mean, I think exploring consciousness, like traveling, like getting outside of your normal, anything that bumps you outside of your automatic is ultimately going to be a learning experience. And when it comes to altered states of consciousness, I'd say explore them with trepidation because you don't want to get trapped in a spot for 10,000 years. Like that's not great. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but like I would maybe do that again. You know what I mean? Like it's weird to say that I would maybe do that again, but it was interesting. But like I could never tell someone like that they should do that. Like it'll change you in ways you couldn't even understand. And I hope that doesn't sound patronizing, but it just is. Like there are we experience, all right, here's one way to think about it. What we see, like right now, like the visible spectrum, is 1/10 trillionth of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. So all the light that exists, we only see a 1/10 trillionth of it. And we call that the visible spectrum of light. So
You
we
talk about
don't
like
know.
UV lights and things like that.
Yeah, so UV, radio waves, X rays, gamma rays, we don't see any of that. We only see the visible spectrum. But all that other stuff I just mentioned, that's all light. It's just we can't see it, right? So as human beings, there's a perceptual slice of reality that we get to inhabit, but that is not all consciousness is. There are experiences beyond. There's just no way to even map it. Like I just couldn't even explain it. Like, and that's why people talk about this experience as being ineffable. You can't put words to it because it's outside. I'm trying to describe something you've never seen before. But it's possible. Like we can have these experiences. And so you don't have to take psychedelics to get there. I've been meditating for over 10 years now, and now I can reach Nirvana without, a psychedelic. Um, and that's great. But like it takes a long time. So, but like these flow states, like those are great. Like follow where your flow states are happening. Like when do they happen? Do they happen when and then why are they happening? And what caused them to happen? You have to have a lot of skill. You have to be sufficiently challenged. It can't be something like a new thing you just picked up. You're probably not going to get in a flow state because you're too focused on getting it right. But once you've got it in your body and you're unconscious, then these codes can execute, and then the conscious self can just go away for a second while you're just like you are just a pattern. You are just the experience. You're just
Mm.
writing. You're just snowboarding. Um, And those are excellent moments. So I'd say explore consciousness through, you know, maybe through the legal ways, but if you really want to, there are other ways, and I just be careful with that because too much will destabilize you. And we've all met those people, or we will meet those people. So,
I've never really been able to meditate. I've tried it, but it just gets too noisy.
okay.
I've been able to do the flow state, like that happens. Getting in the zone is normally not too difficult, but what advice would you give to somebody that wants to try meditating? How the hell do you do it?
Um, I would, I'd say, just start with a mantra meditation, and you can choose whatever mantra you want. But like a good, neutral, easy one is called, or the one I use is "Oh well, peace." So for 20 minutes, take out your phone, put it on airplane mode, set a timer for 20 minutes. For the next 20 minutes, all you're gonna do is just sit there, eyes closed, maybe laying down, whatever you want to do. Just you're trying not to fall asleep, right? So you might want to step it up for this. And so your mind, like an untrained puppy, is going to try to run away at every little thing. It's just going to like run away over here. And every time it does that, you just bring it back in. Oh, well, peace. So you're just trying to focus on nothing really, but you're just like, your thoughts will keep popping up, popping up, popping up. And with each one, you're just going to say, oh, well, peace. And so it becomes like a motion, kind of like moving your eyebrow or something like that, like your non-dominant eyebrow. So it's like a weird muscle that you figure out, which is a suppression. It's like a suppressing way. It's like a, I don't think there's a word for this. It's like a suppression muscle. So you figure out through doing this, you know, through doing this over and over, you figure out, okay, this is what it feels like to say, oh, well, peace. Oh, well, peace. Oh, well, peace. And you do that enough times and you don't even have to say it anymore. It just becomes like this, like moving your eyebrow. And like that, and another point I would offer is you can always use your hearing to check into the present moment. So like, let's say there's a fan in the background, like a noisy fan in your room. Like you can always just hear that and just try to hear that with 100% like focus. And no matter what thought comes in, you're just trying to feel and just hear that fan and all of its perfection. And your body and your brain are going to be like, this is boring. Like, I don't want to do this. And that's the work. That's like being on a Stairmaster. It's like, yeah, it's annoying, but you're focusing on, I need to just hear this fan. And that is the present moment. And then the more you get, the more you're able to tap into the present moment, just the better you get at staying there versus getting, like me, like making upwards and downwards comparisons about like, well, I don't have this and I deserve this. And why didn't this happen? Like these are the thoughts that keep me in suffering. But if I
Yeah.
want to stay out of suffering, then focus on gratitudes, like focus on what you do have, focus outward instead of focusing inward, focus outward.
Hmm.
So that's the idea.
So you would focus on the mantra or the fan to kind of distract your brain from the distractions it's trying to have?
In a way, yeah. So you're trying to learn how to flex that muscle, which is, suppressing the default mode network. That's what you're trying to do in meditation. So you're trying to suppress this blood flow that's happening, this network that will turn on. This is your ego. And it wants to just hold the microphone of consciousness and just say, like, it was really fucked up that one time, and it just wants to just talk. And you're just like, no, I'm not gonna listen right now. I'm not gonna listen right now. So you're not ignoring the thought as much as you're just like accepting it. Okay, cool. I don't have to think about it right now. Hey,
Hmm.
this is my time. Like great, wonderful. You're angry. I hear you. Okay. Like it's like people keep coming up to you and they just want one thing. You're like, okay, great, wonderful. And you just but you get better at like sending them away faster. And then you get to understand the game. What is their game they're trying to play? Like the ego has these games it wants to play, but it's always about separation and judgment. It's like its favorite game is judgment. And so, when you start to meditate, the more you start to recognize the themes of the thoughts you keep sending away. And so you're like, okay, this is a theme. What is the theme? The theme is I feel inadequate. Okay, what's causing me to feel so inadequate that I have 1,000 thoughts within 20 minutes related to inadequacy. Like that's something to journal about. But like, or to take to a therapy session, it's like I feel inadequate. Why? I feel like an imposter. Why? Like, so these thoughts are telling you something, but what are they growing from? That's what you need to figure out. And that's the benefit of meditation. So it becomes like a self therapy. You're like, okay, well, my mind is preoccupied and obsessed with this thing. And so what is the soil that this thing is growing out of? And you get to figure that out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of getting the ego to shut up for a moment, taking a step away from it.
Yeah. And then listening to what the theme is so you can understand like why it is annoying you or pestering you or trying to pull you out of that present moment. What is it? What's its game? But generally its game is just more power.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
We'll
man.
try that out tomorrow.
Hell yeah, man. It's great. Like it'll change things. Because you're talking about earlier, we were talking about that reactivity. Like, you're like, I wish I was less reactive. Like, you will find out like there's a tiny bit of space, a tiny bit of time in which you're letting yourself react. But you
Yeah.
can figure out like, okay, no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Yeah, it's powerful, man. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Now I got a tough one.
All right.
All right. Do you have a quote that resonates with you?
I do.
All right.
Yeah. So I worked with a monk, and he told me that there were two paths in this life. There's the path of pain, and there's the path of listening. So that is a very deep quote because it's like everything in your life, you're always listening, right? We're always in dialogue with other people or in the environment, ourselves. And so your unconscious is always trying to tell you something. And we, as the conscious selves, as the agents of our bodies, are ignoring 99.9% of everything that's flooding into our body. We're ignoring so much stuff. In order to have what we call attention, we set up this filtration system that filters out almost all the perceptions we have and just leaves this tiny little slice for us to manage and deal with. Like you have 11 million bits of sensory information streaming into your body every single second, but your conscious self is only able to attend to like 200 bits per second. So you got to imagine that bottleneck, 11 million down to 200. You're always ignoring something. And so, his idea is like you can either listen to your body and your unconscious and what it wants and what it's telling you, your entire psyche, what it wants and what it's telling you, or you cannot and you can suffer because of it. It's like that's your choice, and it's a great line, man. Endless.
Hmm.
Did it freeze your brain?
I've noticed since I started doing this podcast, man, my brain keeps breaking.
Really? That's a
Yeah.
good thing.
It is, except it just doesn't stop. Like, what was it? I did one on last Wednesday that broke my brain, right? And then Thursday morning, I'm minding my own business, just trying to eat breakfast, not bothering nobody. My brain goes, oh, Adam and Eve got kicked out of heaven for eating an apple. Why did they go back? It must have been in outer space or something, or not on Earth. Oh, so we're fucking aliens then.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to eat breakfast, man. That's all I wanted to do. You know?
Well, you're inquiring, so your brain is going to be like, what if, it's going to think about options, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try the meditating thing. Oh, maybe I'll do
Oh,
it today
cool.
instead of tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, you can start 5 minutes, 10 minutes, work your way up, or, yeah. I mean, a lot of times I will say I'm like annoyed at having to do it, but then I always feel better at the end of it. It's like it resets you. It just, and there's something about giving, like walking around and being like tense all day. Like that's the way your mind is, like all the time, because you're thinking all the time. But if you
Never thought
can
of it like that.
figure out how to relax, like, I mean, if I could see your mind right now, like there'd be spots where I'd be like, I want a massage here because like you're so tense right here. Like, that's what you want, and that's what you can do for yourself, which is like, we have a mental body, if you will, and it's tense all the time unless you systematically start addressing all the internal conflicts you have, which is the goal of therapy, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that is the goal, is like to reclaim your mind, because you were born with a full mind, a full adaptive, creative, beautiful mind. And then through the hardships of life, we've had experiences that we don't understand. We felt slighted. We felt, like we were, um, I don't know, what would you say? Made to be less than, or something like that. So we have all these experiences we can't quite reconcile with. And so parts of our mind, our attention is still trapped there. And so, with therapy, you keep, or sometimes with meditation or just journaling or something, you keep unlocking bits of your attention, bits of your potential, bits of your mind, bits of these places where you've made these limiting beliefs that cause you to be smaller. And yeah. Yeah. What's your favorite
A lot
quote?
to take in.
I know,
Um,
right?
my favorite quote would probably be the change you want in the world, just because it's more. Well, for one, I used to judge people a little bit. I used to be a little bit judgmental, where it was, like, all right, I'm doing this. Why aren't you doing this? You know, and all that. But at the end of the day, if you want something to change, just do it yourself. You know, everybody else might not do it, but that shouldn't stop you from doing what you need to do. You know, see people are hungry, go feed them. You know,
Yeah. That's a Gandhi quote, is it not?
yeah,
Yeah. I think it's a great one too.
yeah. There's that one, and I don't know why lately this one's been coming into my head a lot. A caterpillar can't comprehend what an eagle envisions.
Hmm. Nice.
Yeah, I had to rewind the thing like a couple of times. I was like, what?
A caterpillar can't comprehend what an eagle envisions.
Hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that one too.
that's by Nas. I think the song was called Trust.
Okay. That one makes me think of do not cast pearls before swine.
Because they'll eat the pearls?
I think that's the idea, because they'll just eat them. It's like they don't have, like what the eagle can see, the eagle's supreme vision, which it does have supreme vision. Like the caterpillar has no concept of. So I think that's like the same for me, which is the pigs, they don't have any concept of this, you know, we ascribe value to this secretion out of this oyster, this pearl, but like they don't know that it's valuable. It's
Yeah,
just it's just food, maybe. Maybe it
yeah,
doesn't.
basically. Yeah. Like you go through a lot, but it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
So, where can people find your book?
So we are on Amazon, of course. Any good bookstore, you could probably ask for them to have it delivered, and it'll be delivered there. Or you can go to consciousnessinanutshell.com. You can order direct from our website. We're on like 12 or 13 other online retailers, but that would be a good spot to go to. Yeah, order wherever it makes you happy. But yeah, it's a powerful book, man. We tried to write it inside of a creative nonfiction, so that it would be entertaining and not just all heady neuroscience and stuff, and philosophy. So there is
It's a
a
creative
story.
nonfiction.
Yeah, so creative nonfiction or narrative nonfiction is the genre.
Okay.
So yeah, so I guess one way to explain that real quick would be like, there is a story to help guide you through the topic. So in there's this book called An Actor Prepares, written by Stanislavski. So it's a book on acting, but like instead of this acting teacher just writing his lectures verbatim, like having a stenographer just write them out.
It was a Russian
What?
school, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so he's, touted as like the greatest acting teacher of all time. And he's got 3 books, and they're all written in this creative nonfiction genre. Um, and so they're in the
Oh,
top
okay.
5 best books on acting ever written. And so the reason, it's not like they're supremely amazingly written, but I do like the way that he did it, which is instead of transcribing his lectures, he was like, I'm gonna write a diary. I'm going to write a mock diary from a student attending my lectures. So it's like So he's writing a mock diary of a student attending his lectures at his prestigious acting school, but then he changed all the names. So, like, the lead character is a guy named Kotsya. So you're reading his journal, but he's being taught by a guy named Tortsov. And so reading this thing that Tortsov is really just Stanislavski under a different guise, but it just makes the lessons way more personable and accessible. And he was able to expose more of the psychological components to acting than any textbook ever could. And so I try to do that same sort of idea, but with the study of consciousness. So it's a letter. The idea is like there's this neuropsychopharmacologist who has 8 hours left to live. He's been studying consciousness for a very long time. And because he has only 8 hours left to live, he wants to write one letter to a stranger explaining everything he knows about the subject in 8 hours or less. That's the idea. And so you are reading this book and you're obviously reading this letter and trying to understand, like, why is this guy trapped in a room? Where is he going? Is he going to get out? Where's his partner? Where does she go? And through this chase story, this character's chasing consciousness, you get to understand what consciousness is. So it's just a way to make it interesting enough that people would pay attention towards the end, or pay enough attention that they could reach the end and understand, like, where we're all going, where this is all headed, all that stuff.
So it's the professor speaking about consciousness and the person reading the letter, how he consumes it, I guess.
So the audience would be whoever's reading the letter, and
Yeah.
then the neuropsychopharmacologist, he just is trapped in some weird spot. We'll just say, we'll leave it vague, and was studying consciousness, and once he and his partner's work to not have been for nothing, and he's about to die. So the best thing he could do is, I'm going to synthesize everything I know into this one letter to you, and hopefully it means something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is creative.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Cool. It's weird how these things fall out of you. You know what I mean? Like the creative process. You
Yeah.
never know like where you're going yet. Like you don't always know like until you just start.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, when it's all over, you just kind of look at it like, wow.
Yeah. You're like, okay, this is what this painting is, Like
Yeah.
it's discovery as much as it is creation. It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. The journey gets nuts.
The journey gets nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you have any last words you want to leave to the people?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to just have some sort of like network, like friend or family or something that you can always reach out to help stabilize you and regulate your nervous system. So I would just try to work on that if you can, as just for anybody. Like try and find your family that there's family you're born into, and then there's the family you create for yourself. And just try to make that a good relationship between all those involved. And I think your life will be very rewarding. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'll be forever trying to do. Just enhance relationships.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that the
sounds like
reason
excellent
for?
advice.
Well, thank you, thank you. Yeah, man.
Well, it was great having you as a guest, talking about consciousness. This is a moment. Stay blessed, everybody.